Hello everyone, this is Edgin Montiel, and this video is for Dr. Christopher Foley's 1503 Introduction to Engineering Design at UCCS. This video is going to be covering the SolidWorks tutorial for Revolves and Sweeps, which is similar to some of the other techniques that we've been doing. You guys are very familiar, or should be familiar with by now, with the extrude feature in SolidWorks, which is making a 3D shape. So we usually make a drawing and extrude it. So I'm going to start with making a part here. Open up a brand new part here in SolidWorks because that's going to be the first step in the tutorial anyway. And like I was saying, we're used to this extrude feature that we've used a bunch, but today we're going to end up using the one right next to it, which is the revolved boss base button. But it's just another way that we can make a drawing that we make into 3D. So this is a tutorial in SolidWorks. In the top right-hand corner of my SolidWorks window here, there's a little question mark button, which is the help button. And when I left click on that, I can access the menu, come down to tutorials and left click on tutorials, which opens up this extra little window. And then these little blue tabs at the top, we're going to pick basic techniques. And the exercise that we're looking for is the revolves and sweeps. So I click on that. And we get to see the picture of the candlestick that we're going to make here. So it's going to walk us through the instructions on how to make that. I'm going to go ahead and pull this out of the way so that we can look at my SolidWorks together as we draw this. So just like before, we're going to go ahead and we're going to start with what we're ultimately trying to do. So we're trying to revolve this drawing around. So I'm going to click on that. Then, as always, we have to define where in 3D space we're drawing this so SolidWorks understands. So the instructions tell me to click on the front plane, so I left click on that. And now I can see the little origin here in the middle, and I'm just going to call this the XY origin. And we can kind of look at it and see the relation down here in the bottom left-hand corner of my drawing pane as well. But the first thing my instructions want me to do is to sketch a little shape here. So it wants me to use the line tool. In the instructions, it talks about different ways that you can access the tools here in SolidWorks. So I do want to give a nod to the right click. So while I'm here in a sketch and on my gray sketch area, I can right click, which gives me this little menu that pops up. And I can go to the sketch entities here, where I can actually access a lot of the most common buttons here in SolidWorks to be able to increase my proficiency while drawing. Just if you end up getting a job where you end up having to use a lot of SolidWorks, it is important to increase your proficiency so you can make these drawings a lot quicker. And even though in these tutorials I'm going to be clicking on the buttons on the menus up here a lot so you guys can see what I'm doing, just keep in mind that you can do things a lot quicker if you can learn how to use the right click and the different design wheel buttons that are in SolidWorks. So that's something worth looking into if you're trying to become more proficient, but that's not what these videos are for. They're just to show you how to get these assignments done. So I'm going to be clicking the buttons up here, and we're going to start with the line tool. So I click on the line tool. We're going to make sketch relations right off the bat. So you can see that little blue dotted line appear. And when I draw this, I see that little orange dot appear, and I click there. So I just drew a line, and it gives me the sketch relation of horizontal and coincident with the origin there. And same thing going upwards, I want to make a horizontal sketch relation. And coming to the right here, I also want to make that horizontal sketch relation. So now I'm done with my line tool. I drew my 3 lines, and then SolidWorks wants me to dimension them. So I click my Smart Dimension tool here, and I can click on this bottom one, which they want to be a dimension of 90 millimeters. And then I click on this one, and the dimension is 220 millimeters. And then I can click on this top one, and it wants that to be 20 millimeters. So we're done with the dimension tool. So I hit the little check mark over here to the left in the property manager window. So now the next tool that I'm going to use is the arc tool, which we haven't talked too much about before. So I'm going to show you on the sketch tab here. We have all of our different drawing tools here. So to the right of the arc, I can click this little arrow, and there's 3 different types of arcs that we can draw. So there's the center point arc, a tangent arc, and 3-point arc. I'm going to click on the tangent arc tool. And with this tool, I can click on this little dot here on the edge of my line. And when I left click on that, it's going to start drawing my arc as I move my cursor away. So as I move my cursor, I can see SolidWorks tries to make sketch relations for me right away to make my life easy or difficult, depending on what it's doing. So this first one that you can see here by these dotted blue lines is that it's trying to make a sketch relation of this arc at a 90-degree angle. So we want to avoid this one because what the instructions in SolidWorks are actually telling me to do is to extend this all the way to make an angle of 180 degrees. And it doesn't really matter the radius of this arc right now. The important part is the 180 degrees because we can use the Smart Dimension tool to actually change the radius of it. So I just want to make sure my A that's next to my cursor there equals 180 degrees. And I'm going to left click to put my arc into place. And then I'm going to come over here and hit my little check mark on my arc tool because I'm done drawing with that. Then I'm going to come and click on the Smart Dimension tool. And when I click on my arc, then I can click to stamp this and change the value to 10 millimeters like SolidWorks wants. And then I hit enter on my keyboard. And I'm done with the Smart Dimension tool, so I hit the little check mark. The next thing it wants me to do is draw a line, so I use my line tool again, and from here I'm going to click on this little orange dot where I can draw a line extending down, and I want to make sure I draw my line in an intelligent way following that dotted blue line because I'm trying to make it a sketch relation of horizontal there while I draw it. I also want to make sure I draw it pretty long here so that way I can manipulate it the way that SolidWorks wants me to. So I'm going to click somewhere down here, which draws my line. So then I'm going to hit escape on my keyboard to get out of the line tool. And the next thing it wants me to do is use the arc tool again, but this time I'm going to make a 3-point arc. So when I click on the arc tool here, now in the property manager of the arc, there are the same 3 buttons. So when you're looking up here and it's center point arc, tangent arc, and 3-point arc, these are the same 3 things that are here, are the center point arc, the tangent arc, and the 3-point arc. When you look at these pictures, it shows you the order in which you need to click to make this arc happen when you're drawing it. So we're on this 3-point click arc. So we need to click 1, 2, 3 is the way this one works. And I'll show you over here. So we're going to click a little bit higher on this line. So that's click number 1. Then I'm going to move down and click on the line again, which is click number 2. And right there, it tries to make a 90-degree arc. You can see it by those dotted blue lines. So it kind of looks like a slice of pie. And then I can move my cursor to the right, and you can see it already snapped into place because it's trying to put that center point on my line itself, which is where we want it. But I'm going to give you an example if I go too far. So if I keep going to the right, eventually I can make this sketch relation where it kind of looks like Pac-Man, where again, it's trying to make a 90-degree sketch relation in the arc there, denoted by those dotted lines. It would be a 90-degree angle between the two of them. But what we're supposed to do in this picture is we're actually supposed to get that center point of this arc to line up with the line that we drew. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. SolidWorks locks it into place. I can also confirm that this is a 180-degree arc by looking at the little A equals 180 degrees next to my cursor here. So I'm going to go ahead and left-click that into place to stamp it at some arbitrary radius. And in my Property Manager window over here to the left, it's just good to note that down here in the bottom left-hand corner, I did make that angle 180 degrees, meaning that this arc should be sitting right on that line. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the check mark button to be done with the arc tool. Then I'm going to click on the Smart Dimension button, and then I'm going to give this arc a dimension of 20 millimeters. I hit enter on my keyboard to get that value to lock into place, and then I'm going to hit check mark because I'm done with the dimension tool. Now the next thing in the instructions want to show us on SolidWorks is this trim entities button. So on the sketch tab, I click on this little trim entities, which it's a symbol of scissors. And once I click on that, I get the property manager for the trim entities button, which gives me different ways that you can trim things. But the one that SolidWorks instructions is telling me to click on is this trim to closest, which means that it's going to cut the line closest to the thing. And you can see what it's actually going to cut by what changes color when I hover over it. And we're trying to cut away this little line right here. So when I click on that, you can see that SolidWorks removes it. So then I hit the check mark because I'm done with that. The next thing it wants me to do is use my Smart Dimension button to give this little line right here a dimension of 40 millimeters. And then I'm done with that, so I hit the little check mark to be done with the Smart Dimension tool. And I'm still in my sketch, so while holding Control on my keyboard, I click on this line, and I can see that I have the two lines over here in my sketch entities, selected entities window. And when I highlight or select them, just like on the sketch relations video, you can see that they get highlighted. And we are trying to make a sketch relation between these two of equal, which you guys haven't seen before. So when I click equal, it just makes them the equal length. So it's actually kind of a way of dimensioning this without dimensioning it, because you just told SolidWorks that these two are equal. So it'll just keep these two equal no matter what. So that's just a new sketch relation you guys haven't seen yet. So then it wants me to use the tangent arc tool to draw an arc coming this way. And this one, when we draw it, we do want the piece of pie, the nice 90-degree cut here. It doesn't really matter the radius. We're going to end up dimensioning it for 60 millimeters, but it could be some arbitrary radius right now. We just want, the important part is the A equals 90 degrees. We want this to be a 90-degree drawing right here. So I'm going to click there. And I'm still in this arc tool, so I'm just going to finish the drawing by coming down to this line and making sure that little button turns orange, or that little point turns orange, and I'm going to left click on that. So now I'm done with the drawing, and I just have to finish dimensioning things. So I'm done with the arc. I hit my little check mark. Now I'm going to click on my Smart Dimension button, and we're going to start with this one. So this little orange dot is the first thing I want to click on at that point, and then this point down here, this orange dot. And that one should already be 80, which is what the instructions say. So I just can hit enter on my keyboard, or you can always click on this little green button as well. And now the next dimension I'm going to make is this arc. So when I click on that one, I can click again to stamp it somewhere, and SolidWorks says make that one 12.5 millimeters. Then I hit enter on my keyboard, and now I'm going to left click on, escape, because I clicked on the wrong thing, and now I left click on this one instead. And when I left click again to stamp that into place, I make that one 60 millimeters. And once I dimension that one, my entire figure turned black, and that means I'm fully defined. So now I can hit my check mark button. So I don't know if you guys remember, but way at the beginning of this video, we were on the Features tab, and we clicked on this Revolve Base button. And then we had to click on the front plane, and then we pretty much drew this whole thing, is what's just happened. So we're actually finally done with our sketch, and when I click on my Exit Sketch button, it should take me into my Revolve tool. So the first thing my Revolve tool wants me to do is to pick an axis of revolution. So this box is already highlighted blue because it's ready for me to select something. And the axis for this one is going to be this backbone of our drawing here, the linear line here. So when I click on that, it should automatically show me my revolve here. Over here in the left-hand corner, or in the left-hand side of my window here, in my Property Manager window, I can see that line 3 was populated as my axis of revolution. Under direction 1, it's blind, meaning that it's just going to blindly go in that direction of 360 degrees. That's why it revolved the entire way. There are more options, but we're not actually messing with any of that, so we're just going to be done and hit the little check mark. And awesome, we have a beginning of a candlestick, and you can see that's a lot easier to do than trying to making like a block and trying to cut it out to make it circular or something like that, especially with all this different geometry to it. It's a lot easier just to be able to revolve this. So the next thing it wants us to do is the sweeping portion of this assignment. So all of that so far was just the revolves portion of the assignment. So now we're going to talk about a feature here in SolidWorks called a sweep, which is actually pretty cool as well. It will make your life easier on some of your more complex drawings here. So the first thing it wants us to do is over here in our Property Manager, or our design tree for our part, is to click on this front plane. And then we're going to click on the front view button. My little record stuff's in the way, so I got to manipulate this. I'm sorry. So the front button, or you can hold down Control on your keyboard and press number 1. As I hover over it, you can see that. So I hit front. And then it wants me to click on Hidden Lines Removed, which is this button right here. So when I click on that, it kind of looks like an empty sketch. And then we're going to go up here. So we're going to access this menu up here. If you can't see the File, Edit, View, Insert Tools, Simulation, and Windows button, You should be able to see this red SolidWorks, and probably to the right of it is this little black arrow, which will open up to give you access to these different menus right here. And the one we're looking for is the View menu, because from down there we can left click on View, and we can come to this Hide Show open up menu here. And on here, we want to hide show temporary accesses. So we're going to actually select this one. And now in our drawing, we can see that this temporary axis appeared for us. So we can actually see that in our drawing. And that's important because now we're going to sketch on that. So we're going to click on our line tool here. And we're going to click right on this line. Oh, nobody wants it down here. I'm going to click on it over here, which is going to let me draw a horizontal line coming this way. And then I click. And now I'm going to hit escape to get out of my line tool and use my smart dimension tool. And I have to give this a dimension of 60 millimeters. Wow, I was pretty close on that. So now that's 60. And it already has a horizontal sketch relation and a coincident sketch relation with that temporary axis that we have displayed. So now it wants us to draw an arc. So I'm going to get out of my smart dimension tool by clicking my check mark, and I'm going to go into my arc tool again. It wants a tangent arc. The instructions are talking about using, again, a right-click feature, or just a quicker way of being more proficient in drawing, but I'm going to click it on the buttons. So it wants me to click on this end of my line here, denoted by that little orange dot. So when I left click on that, I can move this way to draw some arbitrary size arc. Yeah, and it looks like it's just kind of big. So if you're not looking at the pictures, it's just this kind of long handle thing that we're making that's coming off this way. So I'm going to click over here somewhere, and then it wants me to keep going and make another one going this way. We're going to ultimately make a sketch relation between the 2 points of this arc to be horizontal. And while I'm drawing it there, I don't know if you guys can see that, but it actually made a dotted line across the bottom of my arc there because it's trying to be awesome for me and make that sketch relation right away. So I left clicked while it was on that dotted line, and now I'm going to hit escape to get out of that tool. And now we just have to dimension everything. So I click on my smart dimension tool. And when I make this one, SolidWorks says make it a radius of 150 millimeters. So hit enter there. There's a smart dimension from this point of the line to this point of the line that needs to be 65 millimeters. And then we're supposed to dimension this one at 20 millimeters. And that should be it for that part of it. And now it wants to make sure we added this sketch relation, so we'll make sure it's right. So I hit the little check mark here. And when I click on this point, I'm going to hold down Control and click on the other point. And we're going to go ahead and make sure that we, on purpose, because I don't see that it has the sketch relation already, and this is the assignment is telling us to make sure we do this one. So 0.7 is in my drawing and 0.9 in my drawing. We need to have the horizontal sketch relation. So then I'm going to go ahead and hit check mark on that. So all I did is while holding Control on my keyboard, I selected this point. While still holding Control, I selected this point as the second point. I confirmed both those points were over here in my property manager for the sketch relation and made those points both horizontal. So now that that's done, we click the check mark. Oh, and this is where in the instructions it wants you to show you how to display delete sketch relations. So you can always click on this button right here, which is display delete sketch relations. And just by clicking that button while in this sketch, it's going to show me every sketch relation that exists for this sketch. So I can actually move down this list and click on each one and look at all the different sketch relations and manage them from here should I want to. So this was just SolidWorks' way of showing you the way to access this. On the image itself, you can always double click on any of these sketch relations to be able to see them. And then up here in your view, you can go to the hide show option, and way down here on the bottom, there's a sketch relations button that you can select. And when you select that one, they go away. So as you get good at SolidWorks, you're going to kind of know what sketch relations are there, and you don't need those green boxes or those little yellow boxes there reminding you of what sketch relations that you've done. Especially if you're doing more complex parts and you're getting really good at drawing and you have a ton of sketch relations, you're not going to want them cluttering your drawing space because then you can start accidentally clicking on them and whatnot, or any of this stuff for that matter. So you can always come in here and turn them on and off. I'm going to leave them on because I like to be able to see them, and nothing we're doing is so complex that that they get in the way, in my opinion. So all that's in the instructions talking about all that. So the last one is we need to move, this handle actually goes down here. We just drew it up here because it's easier to draw up here, I guess. And then I guess also similarly, the SolidWorks instructions wanted to make a demonstration of the fact that you can move this line with the dimension tool. So I'm going to click on the Smart Dimension tool, and now we're going to click on this part of the line, and then this base of the candlestick holder. And when I pull that off to the side and left click, then we change that dimension to 10 millimeters is what the instruction says to do. And now it locked that thing into place, and you'll also know noticed it turned black because this thing is finally fully defined. And what we just did, this drawing of this, like, it kind of looks like a tail, is what we actually did was draw the sweep path for where we're going to apply the sweep feature. So now we're finally done with that, so I hit Exit Sketch. And now the next thing it wants me to do is select the right plane, because we're trying to sketch on this one. And we want to hit Normal to. So now we're normal to that right plane. I'm going to turn it a little bit sideways while holding down my middle mouse button on the sketch area on the gray there. I'm able to manipulate the 3D view of my object here. And we can see now that the candlestick rotated and the tail is actually kind of towards me. So I'm going to hit the normal button again just to get back into that view. So it's kind of hard to tell because it's 2D on our screens, but that tail is kind of coming towards me is what's going on. And the instructions in SolidWorks is just we're going to draw an ellipse next. So we haven't used this ellipse tool either. So when you hit the little arrow next to it, there's some options, but we want the ellipse itself. So I click on that one, and I can literally draw this anywhere. So I'm going to draw it over here. And while I draw it, the first click starts drawing this dotted circle. And I'm going to want to make sure that I don't draw this at some weird angle. So I'm actually going to want to have it coming off to the right here or the left, depending on however you're drawing it, your preference. It doesn't really matter. At some arbitrary size, because I'm just trying to make a rough sketch here. And when I left click, it kind of locks that into place. And now I can move up and down to be able to give my ellipse its ellipse look here. And so once I kind of make it look ellipse-like, I'm going to left click again, and now that locks that into place. So the next thing it wants me to do, so I'm done drawing the ellipse, so I hit the check mark, and now we have to make a sketch relation. So while holding Control on my keyboard, I'm going to select this left point on the ellipse. While still holding Control, I'm going to left click on this right point on the ellipse. And over here on my property window, it didn't do it right. So I'm going to hit escape on my keyboard and try that again. So while holding Control, I'm going to left click on that one and then on that one. And here we go. Now I did it. So now I have 0.3 and 0.5, and I always want to make sure the sketch relation between those 2 points is horizontal. So I'm going to click on my horizontal sketch relation. Then I hit my check mark, and then I'm going to click on my Smart Dimension button, and I'm going to make the smart dimensions that the instructions tells me to do, which is from that point to that point is 35 millimeters. And then from this point to this point is 10 millimeters. Then I hit the check mark on my Smart Dimension tool, and now it wants me to click on the isometric button, which is this one right here. These are just the different kind of skewed views that you can look at. Isometric being this first one, or you can hold down Control and press number 7 on your keyboard. So when I hit that one, it kind of turns my picture sideways. Now I'm still in my sketch, and we're going to make another sketch relation, because while holding down Control, I'm going to pick the center of my ellipse, and still holding down Control, I'm going to left click the point of my end of my line there. And over here to the left, in the Property Manager window, it opened up the sketch relations for these two, and I want to make them coincident. So now it just moved my ellipse onto the line that I drew. So then I hit the check mark, and now I'm going to hit Exit Sketch. So now the feature that I'm actually trying to show you how to do here is the Sweep Boss Base feature. So on the features tab here, I can find the Sweep Boss Base button, and I select that. So based on the pictures here, this little blue box here that's already selected blue for me, it wants to know what is going to do the sweeping action. So that's our ellipse. So I come over here and click on the ellipse. And now it already moved down for me to this little pink box where it's already populated blue, ready for me to click on something. And it wants to know where it's going to sweep at. So it's going to sweep along this line. And once I click on it, it automatically shows me what it's going to do. And that's pretty freaking nifty if you ask me. So we wanted to make sure under options that it's going to follow the path is what the instructions says to make sure is selected here. I wonder what this one does. Let's see. Oh gosh, it breaks your computer. Don't do it. Don't change this option. Oh gosh. Loading, loading. Oh my gosh. Oh no, look, it made it kind of funny looking. Like, I don't know what it's doing there. Let's just go back to the one it's supposed to be, which is following the path. So we make sure that's there, and then you hit the little check mark to say okay, and yay, we have our sweep there. So now we can go back to our shaded views, shaded with edges here button to get out of this skeleton view. And we can see that our candlestick holder now has a little handle that we drew on it. So it tells us to save the part in the instructions, so you can go to File and Save As. You just want to make sure that you save this somewhere where you know how to get to it. I always kind of recommend the desktop. And then if you're following the instructions in SolidWorks, I think it tells you to name it C-Stick. So save. Now the last thing we got to do is put the little hole for the actual candle to go in this candlestick holder. So I'm going to click my extrude cut button. Then I have to click this surface up here to be able to get normal to it. And now we're going to hit the circle button, and then starting at the origin there, and this is why we started at the origin, is because this is a nice spot for this to be. We're going to draw a little circle. We're done with the circles. We hit our check mark. Then we hit our smart dimension button. We're going to dimension our circle to be a radius of, or a diameter of 30 millimeters. So I hit check mark there because we're done dimensioning. Then I can exit the sketch, and it automatically goes into my cut tool right away. And we want to make sure it's blind. And we're going to set that to a depth of 25 millimeters. And then we want to click this little button right here, which is called the draft on off. And we're going to change this value to 15 degrees. So some of your options, you might need to click the flip button, which is right here, if yours was facing the wrong way. That kind of shows you what it looks like, but it's going to be on the inside of the shape. So we actually have this conical shape kind of going on. So I'm going to reverse that back down because we want it inside the candlestick is where we're making the cut. And then you want to make sure that it's going smaller, not bigger. This is the alternative, the other direction of the degree angle cut. So you just want to make sure that these options are selected right, and when you hit check mark, it actually kind of makes like a cup shape inside of your candlestick there. And I believe that's it. So now a way to look at this is it's talking about the display pane again. So on SolidWorks, you have your design tree here, and there's this little part that's protruding out that you can left click on, and when you left click on it and hold down, you can actually drag this out further. And when you do, you can drag it out so far that you get to this little black arrow, and when you left click on that, you get these different design, the different view pane things. So we're looking at our part here. This is our actual part in its entirety, and we know because the little Lego's next to it, and it has our part name. And we can click on this transparency little spot right here. So as I hover over it, you can see that button appears. And when I left click, it now makes my candlestick transparent so I can see the different geometry on the inside, most specifically where we just made that cut. And this is probably where you guys will want to take a picture and turn in this view for the assignment for Dr. Foley and for me to grade. That way I can see that you did this geometry of this portion correctly. So that should be the end of this assignment. You guys make sure you save it. and turn in anything that's needed for it, which I think is actually just an image. So I don't need the part file for this one. Thanks for watching.